Quinn Nolan didn't expect a snowstorm to hit this early in November, and he definitely didn't expect his daughter's coat zipper to snap right as the wind picked up outside the community shelter. "Daddy, it's cold," little Macy whispered, wrapping her tiny arms around her chest, her lips trembling. "I know, baby. We'll warm you up, I promise," Quinn said, crouching to zip up her coat only to realize it was broken for good this time. He glanced around the crowded lobby of the shelter. The heater was busted, and volunteers were passing out thin paper cups of lukewarm cocoa. No spare coats, no blankets left, and Macy was already shivering. That's when he saw it. A navy blue cashmere sweater draped over the back of a chair near the coffee station. It looked expensive, too expensive for anyone in this place, but no one was sitting there. No bag, no purse, no coat, just the sweater. Quinn hesitated. He didn't steal, not even when things were worse than this. But this wasn't about him, it was about her. Macy's little fingers were turning red. He grabbed the sweater. "Here, sweetheart," he said, wrapping it around her shoulders and pulling her close. "Just for now, we'll return it." "MMHM," she mumbled, resting her cheek against his chest. "Excuse me," a woman's voice said sharply behind him. Quinn turned around, expecting security. Instead, he found a woman in a sleek gray coat and high heels that looked completely out of place in this building. Her dark hair was twisted up, and her face was striking clean, sharp, with a kind of calm power behind her eyes. "That's mine," she said, nodding at the sweater. "I'm sorry," Quinn said immediately, shielding Macy with his body. "I wasn't stealing it. My daughter, she's freezing. I'll give it back, I swear." The woman looked down at Macy, who peeked up with wide eyes and a runny nose. Her expression softened. "It's fine," she said. "Let her keep it." Quinn blinked. Are you sure?" She nodded. "She needs it more than I do." "Thank you," he said, his voice rough. "I'll wash it and return it to you. I just didn't want her to get sick." "I said it's fine," she interrupted gently. "It's just a sweater." But it wasn't, not to him. She turned to leave, then hesitated. "What's your name?" "Quinn," he said. "Quinn Nolan, and this is Macy." She smiled. "Hi, Macy." Macy smiled shyly back. "Thank you for the softie." The woman almost laughed. "You're welcome, sweetheart." Then she looked at Quinn again. "I'm Marlow Reed." He nodded politely, but the name didn't mean anything to him. "If you ever need help," she added, reaching into her coat and pulling out a business card, "call me." He took it, surprised. "Thanks." She walked out, her heels echoing across the tile floor. Quinn looked down at the card. Marlow Reed, CEO, Reed and Blake International. He nearly dropped it. As CEO. What was she doing here? He didn't call her. Of course not. Guys like him didn't call women like that. But she came back. A week later, Quinn was parking shopping carts at the grocery store where he worked part-time when a black town car pulled up. The window rolled down. "Need a ride, Quinn?" He turned, stunned. Marlow sat in the back seat, looking like she'd stepped off a movie set. "How did you?" "You put your workplace address on that job application you submitted to the community center," she said. "Saw your name, recognized it, and you didn't call." "I didn't think you'd remember me." "I did," she said, "and I have a job offer." He blinked. "Why?" "Because I need a building supervisor for one of my properties. And I like people who take care of their kids more than they care about looking proud." "I don't want charity," he said quickly. "It's not charity," she said. "It's a job, you'll earn it, and you'll get a proper paycheck, benefits, and a place to stay. There's an apartment on site." Quinn was speechless. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," she said with a small smile. "I'll have a contract drawn up by tomorrow." He glanced down at his worn-out boots, then back at her. Okay. Macy tugged on his hand that night when he tucked her into the cot at the shelter. Daddy. Yeah, baby. Is the softy lady gonna be my new teacher? He laughed. No, honey, she's just helping Daddy with work. She's pretty, Macy whispered sleepily. Yeah, Quinn murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. She is. The next week, they moved into a small apartment above an old office building in the city. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm. Clean, safe. Marlow visited the site often, more often than made sense for a CEO. I like seeing how things are going firsthand, she said when he raised an eyebrow at her third visit in 1 week. You like seeing how I'm doing, he teased. She didn't deny it. They started having coffee together in the mornings, then lunch. Then one night, she brought over dinner real, home-cooked lasagna in a glass dish. I didn't know CEOs cooked, he joked. Only for the people I like, she said, meeting his eyes. He froze. She flushed. I mean people I respect, admire. But the air had already shifted. Something unspoken lingered between them. Weeks passed. Winter deepened. One night, after they finished fixing a broken pipe in the basement, she showed up with 2 cups of hot cocoa and sat beside him on the stairs. You're really good with your hands, she said lightly. He smiled. You're not so bad yourself, Reed. She laughed, then grew quiet. You ever think about starting over? What do you mean? Not just surviving, living. He looked at her, really looked at her. I used to, before everything fell apart. You still can, she said softly. You're not alone anymore. He didn't know what to say to that, but his heart was pounding. She visited more after that, sometimes with books for Macy, sometimes just to talk. And every time, Quinn felt a little more like the man he used to be. One night, he told her the truth. About how he lost his wife in a car accident, how he worked 2 jobs to keep Macy fed, how he thought he'd never be enough for someone again. And she listened, no pity, just quiet understanding. When he finished, she touched his hand. You're more than enough, Quinn. He didn't kiss her then. But he wanted to. And she knew it. The first time Marlow kissed him, it was raining. Not a gentle drizzle, but a full, relentless downpour that turned the city into a blur of headlights and gray shadows. Quinn had been inspecting a leak on the roof again, while Macy stayed inside with the receptionist, who had taken a liking to her and kept a stash of coloring books at her desk. Marlow showed up without an umbrella, her coat soaked through, her hair sticking to her cheeks. You're going to catch pneumonia up there, she called out from the stairwell as Quinn crouched near the edge of the rooftop, tightening the rusted valve with a wrench. He didn't look back. If I don't stop this now, the second-floor units are going to flood, and then I'll really be in trouble. Let me at least hold the flashlight. She climbed up beside him, ignoring the rain, and aimed the beam where he needed it. It was quiet work, save for the wind and the metal creaking beneath them. When he finished, they sat beside the rooftop door, both dripping, breathing in steam from the city below. I haven't done anything like this since college, she said, brushing hair from her face. I kind of miss it. He turned toward her. Climbing rooftops in a thunderstorm, you must have had a wild college experience. Not rooftops, getting my hands dirty, doing something useful. Everything I do now is behind a desk or on a screen. This feels real. He studied her, the way her eyes followed the skyline like she was measuring possibilities instead of buildings. I never would have guessed a CEO would miss the mess. I didn't always wear heels to work, Quinn. He hesitated. What did you wear before? She leaned back against the wall, eyes distant. Thrift store blazers, coffee stains. I interned at my father's firm before the merger. I was the invisible one. The other execs never remembered my name. They called me the girl with the folder. He tilted his head, surprised. So you built all of this on your own? No, she said. I had the name, but I had to earn the respect, and I never forgot what it's like to be overlooked. Her voice had softened. There was something raw beneath it, something she didn't show the world. Is that why you offered me the job? He asked. Because you saw a little of yourself in me. She turned to him, her eyes searching his. No, I offered you the job because you're honest and steady, and you didn't hesitate when your daughter needed you. He didn't answer. The rain kept falling, steady and cold. Then she reached for his hand. Not with hesitation, but with quiet certainty. And he let her. They didn't speak for a long moment. Then, without warning, she leaned in and pressed her lips to his. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't planned. It just made sense. When they parted, her breath caught. Shouldn't have done that unless. Unless what? He asked, his voice low. Unless you wanted me to. He looked at her, rainwater trailing down her cheek. I've wanted to since the second time you showed up. She smiled, not coy but real. They kissed again, deeper this time, until the rain soaked through every barrier between them. After that night, everything shifted. Marlow stopped pretending her visits were about paperwork. Quinn stopped pretending he didn't wait for her car to pull up. They found excuses to be in the same place. A wiring issue in the elevator, a misfilled invoice, a broken lock on the storage unit. Each moment stretched longer, lingered deeper. And Macy, she adored her. One Thursday evening, as Marlow read a story to her while Quinn fixed the light fixture in the hallway, Macy turned and asked, "Are you gonna be my new mommy?" Marlow's voice caught, "Do you want me to be?" Macy nodded, "Only if Daddy likes you." Quinn, listening from the doorway, froze with the screwdriver in his hand. Later that night, after Macy had gone to sleep, he stood beside Marlow in the kitchen. She was drying dishes, her sleeves rolled up, her bare wrist brushing his. She asked if I liked you, he said. Marlow paused, and he took the towel from her hand. I like you more than I should. She looked up. Why does that feel like a warning? Because I'm not your world, Marlow. I'm not boardrooms or charity galas or whatever kind of men you usually meet. She stepped closer. You're right, you're not any of those things. He held his breath. You're better. He didn't answer. She didn't need him to. 2 weeks later, she invited them to an event. A fundraiser at a downtown gallery. Black tie, press, her world. I want you there, she said, both of you. I don't even own a tie, he replied. Then I'll fix that. She did. The day of the event, a delivery arrived. A tailored navy suit, hand-stitched Italian leather shoes, and a dress for Macy that looked like it belonged in a storybook. No price tags, no explanation. Quinn stared at the clothes like they were foreign objects. I can't accept this, he told her when she arrived to help them get ready. You already have, she said, straightening his collar, and I'm not taking them back. He didn't argue. That night when they stepped into the gallery, heads turned. Not because of Marlow, though she looked stunning in a silver gown, but because of who she walked in with. Quinn kept his hand on Macy's shoulder, anchoring himself. The room was full of people who smelled like wealth and moved like they owned time. A man approached them, gray-haired and polished. Marlow, I see you've brought company. Quinn recognized the type. He'd seen them from behind loading docks, stepping into limousines without looking back. This is Quinn Nolan, Marlow said without flinching, and his daughter Macy, there with me. The man blinked, charming. She didn't look away. Yes, they are. Later, on the balcony, Quinn leaned against the railing, pulling at his cuff. Marlow joined him, a glass of champagne in hand. "You didn't have to defend me," he said. "I wasn't defending, I was introducing." "They don't get it." "They don't need to." He turned toward her. "Why are you doing this, Marlow?" Her lips parted. But before she could speak, a woman stepped onto the balcony. "Sorry to interrupt. There's a situation. Your father just arrived." Marlow's expression changed. Quinn had never seen her unsettled. Until now. She looked at the woman, then back at him. "I need to deal with this." He nodded, of course. But something in her eyes said this wasn't just business. And as she disappeared back into the gallery, Quinn had the sinking feeling he was about to find out why. Quinn didn't see Marlow for the rest of the evening. He waited on the gallery balcony for several minutes, then wandered back inside with Macy, who whispered she was getting sleepy. He carried her to the coat check, murmuring reassurances, and declined the offer of a chauffeured car, choosing instead to walk. The cold air outside sobered him more than the champagne ever could. The city lights blurred into streaks across wet pavement, and every step away from that gallery felt like a step back into a world he thought he was leaving behind. He didn't hear from Marlow the next day either. Or the day after that. By the third day, he was pacing the small apartment after putting Macy to bed, staring at the phone on the counter. Her absence wasn't just noticeable, it was deliberate. She had vanished without a word. He didn't want to assume the worst. But he was no stranger to people disappearing once the novelty wore off. Still, something didn't sit right. Marlow wasn't flighty. She wasn't careless. And she had looked genuinely shaken when that woman mentioned her father. He took a chance and called the number on her card. No answer. That night, as he emptied garbage bins on the ground floor, he heard the elevator chime. He didn't expect to see anyone, especially not her. Marlow stepped out, wrapped in a long coat, her face drawn but composed. She looked tired in a way he hadn't seen before, like something inside her had been pulled too tight for too long. "I'm sorry," she said before he could speak. He set the trash bag down. "You disappeared." "I know. I thought maybe it crossed a line." "It wasn't you." She stepped closer, her voice low. "My father blindsided me that night. He showed up with papers, a merger proposal that would hand over controlling interest of the company. He wants me out." Quinn frowned. "Why?" "Because he hates that I've changed things, that I've hired differently, donated differently, that I've stopped playing by his rules." He leaned against the wall, absorbing her words. "Why not just say no?" "Because he has votes, leverage, and if I push too hard, he'll leak things to the board, personal things." She broke eye contact. Quinn's jaw tightened. "Like us?" "Yes." "So you're worried they'll find out you've been spending time with a maintenance guy and his daughter?" "It's not like that," she said quickly. "It's not about your job, it's about perception. They'll twist it, make it look like I'm reckless, unfit to lead." He exhaled slowly. "Then what do you want me to do?" Her eyes searched his. "I want you to trust me. I need time to handle this without putting you and Macy in the middle of it." "You think I'd let you fight this alone?" "You have a child to protect." "And you think I don't want to protect you too?" "I don't want to lose everything I've built." "Then why build it alone?" That stopped her. He stepped forward, wiping his hands on a rag from his back pocket. "You let people think you're untouchable, Marlow, but you're not. You're flesh and blood like the rest of us. And whatever this is between us, it's not something I can pretend didn't happen." She didn't pull away when he reached for her hand. "I'm not asking you to choose," he said, but don't shut me out. Marlow's throat worked as she swallowed. She tightened her fingers in his. I don't want to shut you out. Then stop running. She nodded slowly, like something inside her finally cracked open. I'll fix this, she whispered. You don't have to fix it alone. The following week was chaos. Marlow's father launched an aggressive campaign to undermine her leadership. Articles began appearing online, anonymous sources questioning her judgment, stories about her, inappropriate connections, and charity cases. Quinn's name was never mentioned, but it didn't have to be. One morning, a man in a suit showed up at the building, claiming to be from corporate. He insisted on inspecting the property. Quinn showed him around without comment, but he knew exactly what the man was doing, digging for anything that could be used against her. That night, when Marlow finally appeared at the apartment, she was furious. They're trying to bait you, she said, pacing the kitchen. They want you to snap, lose your temper, give them something they can twist. Then I won't give them anything. It's not fair. No, it's not, he said. But if they want to see a man doing honest work, let them look. She stopped pacing. I hate that this is happening. I don't, he said. What? It means they're scared of you. You're changing things, and they know it. Marlow's eyes filled with something fragile and defiant all at once. I've never had someone stand up for me like this, she said. You've never let anyone close enough. She crossed the room and touched his chest lightly. I'm trying. He curled his fingers around hers. So am I. But the pressure didn't stop. 2 days later, Quinn got a call from a woman representing the board. She tried to offer him a financial settlement, hush money. All he had to do was sign a non-disclosure agreement and agree to sever ties with Marlow. He hung up. That night, he told her. They thought they could buy me off, he said, arms crossed. Her face went pale. They're desperate. What do we do now? Marlow stared at the floor, then lifted her head with sudden clarity. We don't hide anymore. You sure? I'm done letting them dictate my life. The next morning, she held a press conference. In front of cameras and reporters, she stood on the steps of the Reed and Blake headquarters, her voice calm and unwavering. I am not ashamed of the people I care about. I am not ashamed of the man I love or the child I've come to adore. I built this company to mean something, and if that means walking away to protect what I believe in, then I will. Quinn watched from the back of the crowd, Macy's hand in his. The applause was hesitant at first, then stronger. Later that afternoon, the board voted. And Marlow won. Barely. When she returned to the building that night, she didn't go to her penthouse office. She came to him. Still want to fix light fixtures with me? He asked as she stepped into the apartment. Only if you keep letting me eat your terrible coffee cake, she replied. He laughed and pulled her into his arms. I meant what I said, she murmured against his chest. I love you. He kissed the top of her head. I know. And I'm not going anywhere. Good, he said, because neither are we. The snow had started falling again, light this time, drifting past the windows of the building Marlow had once only visited for inspections. Now, she was here almost every day. Not because she had to be, but because it felt like home. Quinn brushed the dust off his palms as he stepped out of the utility room, the faint scent of paint and pine cleaner lingering on his shirt. We finally got the heating stabilized on the second floor. Marlow leaned against the hallway wall, arms crossed, her coat unbuttoned. That'll make Mrs. Calhoun happy. She's been threatening to move in with her sister if she has to wear another pair of thermal socks indoors. She told me she'd rather freeze than listen to her sister talk about her cats for 2 weeks. he said with a grin. Marlow's laugh was quiet but real. You've become the unofficial mayor of this building. And you've become a fixture in my daughter's bedtime routine, he replied. She won't go to sleep unless she knows you're coming by tomorrow. Marlow's gaze flickered, softer now. I like that she counts on me. You've earned it, he said, more serious this time. She stepped closer, reaching up to adjust the collar of his shirt. You know, I've been thinking. Dangerous. Very, she smiled faintly, but can't shake the idea of doing something bigger with this place. Quinn raised an eyebrow. Bigger. Renovations. Full ones. Family units, a proper community garden on the roof, maybe a daycare in that unused storage room on the first floor. There are families here who need more than just a roof. His jaw tightened slightly. That won't be cheap. I don't care, she said. I want to put my money where my heart is, and my heart's here. He studied her, then nodded slowly. Then we start planning. They spent the next few weeks working side by side reviewing blueprints, meeting with contractors, and listening to tenants. Quinn handled logistics. Marlow handled negotiations. Somewhere in between floor plans and budget proposals, the lines between their lives blurred further. It wasn't just a romance anymore. It was a partnership. One snowy afternoon, Quinn found Macy sitting on the floor in the lobby, surrounded by colored paper and glue sticks. What's going on here? He asked, crouching beside her. I'm making a sign, she said, her tongue sticking out as she concentrated on her letters. For the party. What parties? Macy looked up. Miss Marlow said we should have a big one when the building's fixed, with music and games and cake. Quinn glanced over to where Marlow stood near the front doors, talking to a contractor. She caught his eye and smiled, not coy, not teasing, just open, like they had nothing left to prove to each other. Later that night, as they sat in the quiet of the apartment, Marlow spoke without preamble. I've been offered a position in London. Quinn stilled. What kind of position? Board chair of an international foundation. It's a big deal, but turned it down. He frowned. Why? Because already have everything I want here. He stared at her, unsure if he'd heard her right. I've spent so many years chasing titles, proving I could build something that mattered. And then I met you, and I realized didn't just want to build a company. I wanted to build a life. He didn't speak, but his hand found hers, folding it between his fingers. You and Macy, you didn't just change my world. You gave me one. He exhaled slowly. I've spent a long time thinking I had to do everything alone, that needing someone meant weakness, but you make me feel stronger. Her voice was softer now. Then let's stop waiting. For what? For the perfect moment. She stood and pulled a small box from her coat pocket. I was going to wait until the building was finished, or until spring, or until I'd made some grand gesture. But none of that matters. Quinn stared at the box, then back at her. You're not serious. I am. She popped it open. Inside was a ring, simple, gold, elegant. I know it's not traditional, and I know your life has been anything but easy, but I don't want to wait for another sign or another excuse. I want to be a family, officially. He didn't move for a long moment. Then he stood, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her with a certainty that left no room for hesitation. You're insane, he whispered, but yes. Macy burst into the room a second later, rubbing her eyes. Why are you kissing like that? Marlow laughed, brushing her hands down her coat. Because asked your dad to marry me. Macy tilted her head. Can I be in the wedding? Quinn scooped her up. You can be the flower girl, the ring bearer, and the boss. I'm already the boss, she said sleepily. The renovations finished a month later. The rooftop garden was planted. the daycare painted in bright pastels, and each unit had new windows and working heat. The building buzzed with life, and the party Macy had insisted on lit up the courtyard with fairy lights and music. Quinn stood beside Marlow, watching Macy twirl in a flower crown someone had made from rooftop herbs. "You did this," he said. "No," she replied, "we did." He turned to her. "You gave us more than a home, you gave us a future." Marlow reached into her coat and pulled something from her pocket, a tiny, slightly frayed blue sweater. Quinn blinked. "You kept it." "I found it in Macy's old things. I thought about donating it, but I couldn't." She handed it to him. "It's where it all started," she said. He took it, heart tight in his chest. "A borrowed sweater." Marlow's voice lowered, and now a shared life. They stood together, surrounded by lights and laughter and the warmth of a second chance. No boardrooms, no titles, just them. And it was everything. The morning of their wedding arrived quietly, with a pale sunrise stretching across the city skyline and soft golden light slipping through the windows of their apartment. The building was unusually still, as if it too was holding its breath. Quinn stood in front of the mirror in his bedroom, adjusting the cuffs of his white linen shirt. He'd never imagined himself wearing anything like this, tailored to fit, buttons that shimmered faintly in the light, a collar that actually sat straight without effort. It wasn't flashy, just right. Clean, intentional, like everything that had changed in his life since Marlow had walked into it. Behind him, Macy sat cross-legged on the bed, wearing a purple dress covered in tiny embroidered stars. She held one of her stuffed animals in her lap, carefully wrapping a ribbon around its neck. "You nervous, Daddy?" He glanced at her reflection and smiled. "Only about whether I'll trip walking down the aisle." "You're not supposed to walk, you're supposed to wait at the front." "That's a relief." Macy looked up at him seriously. "She's gonna look like a princess." "I know." The ceremony was set to take place in the rooftop garden, now fully grown with ivy curling up trellises, flowers blooming in neat rows, and the wooden arch Marlow had designed herself draped in soft white fabric and woven greenery. Residents had volunteered to help Mr. Beck strung the lights, the Patel twins arranged the chairs, and Mrs. Calhoun insisted on baking the wedding cake. As Quinn stepped out onto the roof, he found it transformed. Guests were arriving, some from Marlow's world, dressed in designer coats and silk scarves, others from his, wearing borrowed suits and beaming faces. But no one seemed out of place. The mix wasn't awkward. It was alive. He spotted Marlow's assistant, Claire, near the guest book table, directing people with gentle efficiency. She'd taken on the role of coordinator without being asked, and from the way she handled the crowd, it was clear she'd done it before. The music started softly, an instrumental piece Quinn didn't recognize, but it sounded like something Marlow would choose. Elegant, grounded, romantic without being obvious. Then she appeared. The moment Marlow stepped onto the rooftop, time didn't stop, but it did stretch. She wore a dress unlike anything Quinn expected. It was simple, sleeveless, ivory silk that flowed when she walked, with a pearl belt that matched the earrings she wore. Her dark hair was down for the first time he'd ever seen, curled softly around her shoulders. She held a bouquet made of white peonies and olive branches, no veil, no glittering crown, just her. He didn't look away once. As she reached him, he whispered, "You're stunning." She leaned in, voice low. "You clean up well, Mr. Nolan." The officiant, a retired judge Marlow had once worked with on a housing initiative, began the ceremony. It was brief but meaningful, filled with words that resonated about resilience, second chances, and the kind of love that grows from truth, not perfection. When it came time for vows, Marlow didn't hesitate. "I thought I had everything I needed," she said, eyes never leaving his. "But I was wrong. I didn't have home until I had you. I didn't have purpose until I met Macy. And I didn't have love until I stopped pretending I didn't need it. Quinn swallowed hard, then spoke. I used to think love was something people like me didn't get twice. I thought showing up was enough. But you showed me that being loved means letting someone in, even when it's scary. I never knew I could be this full, this sure. You didn't just change my life, you gave it back to me. The applause that followed wasn't polite, it was real, emotional, full of people who had watched this love story unfold in the cracks and corners of a quiet city building. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Marlow didn't wait. She pulled Quinn into a kiss that made half the rooftop cheer and the other half reach for tissues. The reception was held right there on the roof. String lights flickered above tables covered in mismatched tablecloths. Music played from speakers someone had borrowed from the rec room. Macy danced in circles with the Patel twins, her flower crown slipping sideways, her laugh echoing between the buildings. Quinn and Marlow didn't leave the rooftop. They didn't need to. As the evening stretched on, Marlow pulled him aside near the garden beds. Do you remember the night I gave you that job? I remember thinking I'd wake up and realize it wasn't real. She took his hand and pressed a small key into his palm. What's this? The building's yours. He stared at her. What? I transferred the deed this morning. The trust owns the nonprofit now, and we're naming it after your mother. You'll manage it with the board, but it's yours to lead. I don't know what to say. You've already said everything. You've shown me every day who you are. Just wanted to make sure this building never belongs to anyone who doesn't understand what it means to have nothing. His eyes burned, but he didn't drop them. You amaze me, he said. I know, she whispered, grinning. They danced slowly, long after most of the guests had gone. The lights dimmed, the music softened, and the city below faded into silence. Later that night, after Macy had fallen asleep curled up between two pillows, and after the last of the cake had been wrapped and stored, Quinn and Marlow stood barefoot in the kitchen, sharing the last slice. You ever think about what life would have looked like if we hadn't met? He asked. I try not to, because I wouldn't trade this for anything. Even the broken pipes. Especially the broken pipes. He laughed and leaned down to kiss her again, slower this time. Here, in their home, with no audience and nothing left unsaid. And as the snow fell gently outside, they stood still, wrapped in warmth that didn't come from a heater or walls or even the lights above them, but from something far deeper, something built piece by piece, moment by moment. Love, real and rooted. The kind that never asks you to change. Only to stay.